Hello! You can tell it's really cold because it's taking longer than normal for the larger lava lamp to kick into action. I know how important good night's sleep is, you know? Tattooed monkey, not dumb. But last night was like the first time in over 2 weeks, literally, that I'd had like a decent night's sleep, or what a normal person would call a normal night's sleep. And I like check my weight a couple of times a day. That's not really good, but you know, no big deal. Just because, and I really knew this, not really any shocker, but it is kind of a shocker. So I got a good night's sleep last night, and I woke up and I like lost 6 pounds. I know, like when your body's under stress and cortisol and all that stuff, it doesn't operate normally. And I know actually how important a good night's sleep is. I think a lot of people think I'm lying when I say I'm that busy all the time and that I do work 7 days a week. I don't think people believe me. But so, yeah, first time in over 2 weeks I'd gotten a serious night's sleep and lost 6 pounds overnight. Wow, it's kind of amazing. I think this article will be about rationality and seriousness. It's gotten to the point where, you know, I'm only 53. Of course, every older generation thinks the newer generation is extremely dumb. However, unfortunately, that is the case here. To be rational and serious and think rationally, logically, and simply just be serious and think all the things that we have in our heads that are just, you know, completely nonsensical. We've all gotten improper education. 95%, if not more, the nonsense that we were told to believe in are lies. I think my own isolation from mass psychosis, you know, public school system, even though I went to public school system, I knew at a very young age it was all complete brainwashing and nonsense. I've known this my whole life. I hung out in the library. I knew very early on that it's way better to hang out in the library and have an innate desire to learn, but from masters, not from people in the public education system, which they themselves don't know anything. It's like, you know, I'm going to learn from Plato and Aristotle, Citianus, Damascus, you know, the greats, the greatest of the greats. You know, why would I want to learn from these, you know, minimum wage flunkies in the public education system? Their degree means nothing, and the only thing they're doing is regurgitating the stuff that they were taught to believe in. And an undeniable fact, and I've talked about this countless times, in every epoch of human scientific idea, you know, this, you know, we got a firm grip on how the world or the cosmos works. They've always been wrong. Every single time. By the way, I put up a post, and it's also too on my Substack. You can go to the description of this video. You can go to my Substack. Everything there is for free download. I got a one-page sheet that would take you less than 10 minutes to read, and it completely destroys the idea of what you think quantum is. Modern science is, alas, unfortunately, atomism. Anything that's really important, it's either completely destroyed the idea of explaining it thereof, or it's convoluted to the point of absurdity. It's turned Mother Nature into, you know, it's just like a crazy chick with a pocket calculator. There is no math in nature, you know. All fields are unified. I unified light and matter. I've done that through countless videos. There's not been a single person to challenge me on the fact that I've unified light and matter. First person in the world to explain what magnetism is. It's divine simplicity. It's really simple. This is called a toroflux, by the way. It's a little kid's toy. It's basically a toroidal slinky. It's like, here's the ether, here's the dielectric, and here's magnetism. I think it's about as simple as it gets. I mean, the only fundamental force vector in nature, of course, is magnetism. Of course, I've explained magnetism endlessly. Today we have a total absence of people who can think clearly. Nikola Tesla said that you could be quite insane and be a deep thinker. And this is true. He said you have to be able to think clearly and sanely, you know, to be a true thinker. But today's people are both deep thinkers that are insane. So we're actually, what we're currently in is this nasty clique of atomism. Atomism has existed thousands of years ago. It keeps coming in cycles, just as everything in the universe comes in cycles. Just these particle fantasies. And now we're in quantum, and you know, this one-page thing I've got below explains it. The whole origins, and you know, the fat bald tattooed, not as fat as I used to be, right? Tattooed monkey in front of you. I know the whole origins and history behind the word quantum. I know where it came from, how it became popularized. It was right in the nexus starting point of GR and QM, which stands for general relativity, and quantum mechanics. Our general relativity fundamentally and fallaciously presumes that space and time are things, they could be bent and warped, and this is the fabric of the universe from the debunked, and it's debunked idea of relativity. Relativity has been debunked by the wisest minds that are out there, like he's an Australian guy, I can't remember his name. He's kind of bald and he's got a strange accent. He's a really brilliant guy. He likes my videos. I'm sorry I can't think of his name right now. He's given a lot of lectures. Very smart. He goes after Einstein and this crazy idea of black holes. But there's only ever been two fundamental foundations painted for the nature of reality. One has been on space-time nonsense, and the other one, of course, has been upon a medium, that being the ether. And there's only one that logically explains the nature of the universe, and that, of course, is the ether. The origins of the word quantum, by the way, Daniel Comstock, a physicist from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, in 1917, semi-popular book on the modern theory of atoms, electricity, and radiation. Is a section on quantum theory. Radiation included discussions of light atoms, or the modern doctrine of light quanta, which Leonard Troland, who is the author in the section, clearly was in sympathy. It's Comstock and Troll in 1917, page 182. Gilbert and Lewis, in 1926 paper, coined the term photon for the smallest unit of radiant energy, i.e. light. This is in Nature magazine. Getting to the gist of things came from Albert Einstein and its idea of das Lichtquant, or a light quantity. It's a reference to a measure. So the very person who popularized the word quantum, Leonard Troland, by the way, was a researcher into psychical research and carried out experiments in telepathy. And he met his end in a mountain climbing expedition. So the guy that actually popularized the word quantum was himself a wackadoodle, a nutter, a kook. Nature magazine, 29, October 1926. Instead of light quantum, one should consider a new kind of atom, which he called a photon. Modern scientists today are not actual genuine scientists, as in truth seeker, but are mathematicians. The core religion of mathematics, of course, is this idea of desire to count things. Well, fields, of course, are not things, nor are particles. Rather, ether modalities, just as I've said, every particle, of course, is super high energy light, and of course all atoms are compounded hydrogen. Mother Nature is really simple. I mean, it'll just bring you to your knees and make you want to cry. It's so simple. So quantum only means an energy, or the quantum thereof. Of course, quantum comes from the Latin meaning amount, or how much. This, again, is the fundamental of today's so-called science, which is not true science in Aristotelian or Platonic Pythagorean sense, rather is a science of credentials and diplomas and PhDs based in mathematics, but Mother Nature isn't based in math. Max Planck postulated electromagnetic theory, the absorption and emission of discrete packets, or quanta. This is where we get the idea of quantum from. There's nothing in nature, and this is not my opinion or feeling or belief, that you could point to. Look, there's quantum right over there. Wait, right over there. You see it? There's quantum right there. There is nothing. Absolutely nothing anybody can point to. And I know someone's saying, what about a quantum computer? I'll get to that in just a second. These are measures, and a measure, of course, is agreed upon standard. A mile is not a thing, a gram is not a thing in nature, ounce, pound, inch, second, meter, volt, or amp. These are agreed upon standards of measure. Measure, of course, of any kind is not a thing at all in nature. Measure, of course, is a standard. Smallest unit of discrete energy phenomena. This quotation from them on what the word quantum is. This is Walter Russell. Nothing is more fantastical or a travesty of how nature works than is quantum theory. Its very basis has no relationship to reality. Of course, it makes for really good movies and science fiction TV shows. That is, of course, undeniable. These are part of the concepts that don't exist in actual nature or natural mechanics of Mother Nature. Waves, space, time, shadows, emptiness, chaos, quantum, negative charge, force, electrons, photons, virtual photons. Same is true of miles, seconds, grams, meters, inches, so on and so forth. These are measures. So the typical person would say, well, what about quantum computers? Well, of course, the uncertain outcome variable of charge does not reify the term quantum. I can call my microwave a quantum atomic excitation box, but this does not give validity or reification, meaning propping up, making something out of nothing, right? Like a lump of clay, you shape it and you make something out of it that's valuable and beautiful is reification. Turning something that is nothing into something. This is what these scientists, these fallaciously ill-minded, unintelligent, non-sane thinking so-called scientists have done with the word quantum. It has become part of human lexicon. Quantum this, quantum that. Quantum interaction. You see, the negative tachyon particle had a quantum interaction and time traveled backwards to before the chain of causation, and this unexplainable effect that we see here in the future is what we call quantum tunneling. You really have to be quite insane or have your brain turned off to believe in this nonsense. So, a measure of any kind, of course, is not a thing found in nature. This is checkmate. Since there's nothing you could point to in nature and call it quantum, there is nothing in nature that is quantum. But these people have reified all these concepts like emptiness and space and time. Time is a measure. Space is just the negative image of pure potential, which is the ether. I mean, the volume of the magnetic field, which is toroidal, and what's a torus? I mean, well, a torus is a donut, but that's a correct description. That doesn't actually explain what a torus is. Like, well, what's a torus, since that's the geometry of magnetism, which is, if you said, is the centrifugal force vector of the entire universe. It gives everything mass and magnitude, which it is. Like, well, a torus is a 3D extrapolation of a three-dimensional force vector. So you take a three-dimensional force vector, which is you take a piece of wire, you bend it into the shape of an S, and then you take each end of the S and bend it inversely, and you hold it in on its end. You can see it's this three-dimensional S-curve. It's a three-dimensional force vector. Well, the volume of every torus, of course, is space, which is the energy dissipation of the dielectric, is, of course, the magnetic field. So now we actually have the volume of the donut or the torus. This negative image is no different than the negative image of the absence of light, which we call a shadow. But no human rationally, if you have a strong Platonic mind, would reify a shadow. Sure, it's a shadow. It's right over there. I can see it's shit. There's a shadow right over there. You see it? Yeah, we can both point to a shadow, but a shadow is not a thing. A shadow is an absence of something. It has no principality of its own. Everybody, if I say the word unicorn, has an idea of a unicorn in their head, but we all also, too, know there's no such thing as a unicorn. When we say unicorn, and I say the word unicorn to you, you're immediately going to think of that one-horned, horse-licking creature. So we all are certain what a unicorn is, even though it doesn't exist. The same is true of space. The same is true of a shadow. A shadow is not, nor is space, a medium. And they have attributes but not properties. And this is the one thing Nikola Tesla railed against relativity about. He says, Tesla called Einstein a fuzzy-haired crackpot, fundamentally for general relativity, but fundamentally general relativity's premise, since it is atomism, is the reification of space, which is not a thing at all. Space is literally a shadow of the ether. You know, light would be the ether. The shadow would be the absence of the light. Well, space is the absence of the ether. This is it. Here's the space right here, the volume of the torus and the magnetic field. The three-dimensional force vector causes something else to appear, that being the absence. What's the absence of pure potentiality, i.e. the ether, i.e. rest energy? Well, pure impotency of energy. That's like me saying, well, I got a fully charged battery over here and I drain it down to zero. It's like, well, this is space energy. You're like, what? Well, the battery is drained to zero. Well, I get that part. Well, you know, this is a discharged battery, so we have space energy. It'd be like the shadow of potential. This battery's got a 0% charge. Yeah, I get that. So now it has space energy. Oh, what? Well, I've drained all the energy off to do something else. I've made it express itself in force vectors, like powering things and turning my fans and charging my computers. Now I have space energy. Or I could say shadow energy. What if I said, so that's a 0% charge battery? No, it's got shadow energy. Like, what? Yeah, there's no charge there, so we call that shadow energy. We, of course, normal human beings would say that's a depleted battery, right? Well, it's the same, basically a perfect analogy, too, by the way. See, people that can't think clearly, the people that Nikola Tesla referred to as insane, they actually think like this. They would say, well, that's space energy over there. People, and it's such a simple concept. A wave is not what something is, rather what something does. And when I talk about stuff like this in live stream, and people consider it to be like, oh, it's a mind-shattering concept. I'm not praising my intellect so much as I'm just shocked at the fact that humanity is not that evolved. Either intellectually and definitely not so on the front of wisdom. All waves, too, require a medium. There's no such thing of any phenomena where we talk about wave phenomena, which is a disturbance, right? That doesn't have a medium. Wave phenomena. Waves are not what things are, rather what things do. The medium of light and magnetism and dielectricity is the ether. The medium of sound waves. Also, too, this idea that light or sound or an emission or things are emitting light or sound is absolutely untrue. Nikola Tesla told you what light was. He referred to it as a sound wave in the ether. Logical, simple, accurate, divinely simple. These people have convoluted things in your head, and I swear to God, you show me the dumbest, most nonsensical stuff on the tube, like people with like 8 million subs. Their videos like it'd be posted for one day and it's already got 2 million views. People, yeah, it's a real good explanation. I'm not going to name the channel, but there's a bunch of them like that. They will explain simple things in nature, and they're not explaining it at all. They're describing it, and they're describing it inaccurately, and the description is totally absent. And everybody is just, oh yeah, I'm all on board with that. You're right, man. I know why this channel's got 8 million subs. It's like, well, I just watched a video full of nonsense, irrationality, and absolute blathering idiocy. Nothing true is popular, and nothing popular is true. And in several ancient languages, the same word for profane or ignorant, dumb, profane, is the exact same word for popular. Popular and profane are the exact same term. By no coincidence whatsoever. They're the exact same term. Profane is popular, and what's popular is profane. It's like, she's really popular. It's like, oh, she must be, We can all think of a million things on like Instagram and other places that are very popular, and yet will rot your brain. It will make you less informed, less intelligent, and less unwise. It's like sucking brain cells just by watching or looking at that person, or the stuff that they say. Isn't it horrible that the universe is this way? Well, our world, not the universe. Excuse me, I take that back. These people have never defined the word field or energy. A field is very simple. I told you what it is. It's an ether perturbation modality. They've never defined energy either. Sure we have. It's right here in Wikipedia. It says energy is the ability to do work. Well, that's descriptively accurate, but it doesn't explain what energy is. We're living right now in an era of atomism. Our society doesn't create critical thinkers rather than followers. The more credentials, by the way, somebody flaunts, the more likely they are to be wrong. Actually, how dare you see my PhD hanging on the wall there? How dare you question me? I spent a lot of years and money wasted memorizing this garbage. It's like, yeah, but you're all wrong. Credentials don't signal intelligence, rather programmability. These people never let you challenge their nonsense either. They'll always point to their diplomas or their credentials or the lack of your credentials. Like, yeah, but I'm thinking clearly and rationally. And what I said is utterly irrefutable. When I point out facts, logic, and wisdom, and your answer is to point at your diploma hanging on your wall, you've lost. That's not how a formal debate is conducted. If you can't argue it easily, you know, if you really know something, you could turn half your brain off, if not more, and sit there and, like, you know, polish and focus on your nails and debate it with ease. These people start sweating, you know, like a pregnant nun at Sunday Mass. I heard that recently from somebody who says, "You're sweating worse than a pregnant nun on Sunday Mass." There's just a total absence of people that can think clearly anymore. Nature can't work this way. It's impossible. Someone recently told me, he says, nature doesn't follow, and Occam's razor is not a law of nature. I assume you know what Occam's razor is. Well, Occam's razor is not a law, yet nature still follows same, because for it to be true and part of natural order, it has to follow that simplicity. It has to. There's no way around that. Half the reason people are crazy, not half of, part of the reason people are crazy is that we've all been taught to regurgitate nonsense and believe that nature is complicated and convoluted, and it's not. I guess I was lucky in that I knew, as a very old soul, and I am, I knew very early on, all these, very, very early on, all these people are nuts. These people with school, it's like, I'm going to hang out in the library. I'm going to ignore anything these twisted, ignorant people say. It's all trash and garbage. They want me to read and regurgitate and memorize trash. I'm interested in a real education. And I gave myself a real education. That's the only way to go. You can't learn from these people. You can't. They're just brainwashed. They're regurgitating garbage. These particle fantasies and making something out of nothing, as in quantum, this isn't true. Nature doesn't work this way. I mean, it can't work this way. There are no dualities in nature, too. They'll keep teaching us that nature contains dualities. That's like thinking ice and water is a duality. It's like, no, those are different temperature and pressure modalities of one thing. Even in that great book published in 1917 by Charles Proteus Steinmetz, he even said, that was over 100 years ago, like 108 years ago, he said everybody then had completely misapprehended what electricity was. Electricity is not a thing in of itself, just like a cake is not a thing. A cake is, you know, bread and flour and eggs and, you know, all of this other stuff. It's like, it's a cake. Talking about electricity as if it's a singular entity or a fundamental substrate of the universe is absolutely not true. If a young person would have learned what electricity was, then you could super easily explain to them how an electromagnet works. There's videos that are like a half-hour long on YouTube trying to explain, well, this is how, you know, those giant ones in the car crushing yards that pick up, you know, crushed cars and move them from one end. It's like, this is really easy. You got a coil at the end, you pass a powerful charge through it, and you actually create this discharge ground for the dielectricity, which terminates all its energy into the magnetic field. So you end up with this powerful magnetic field, which is what magnetism is. Magnetism's a dielectric field. So you got this coil on the end that converts nearly 100%. It's quite lossy, but nearly 100% of the dielectricity into a very powerful magnetic field, because electricity is twofold. It's composed of dielectricity and magnetism. So this makes explaining electromagnets easy. It makes explaining the electrical field easy. It makes a whole lot of things easy. And this is a guy who said this in a book 108 years ago. And yet we still have the same stupid brain rot being taught today. Charles Proteus Steinmetz, by the way, was a lot more intelligent than Nikola Tesla. His books are really complicated. His math, some of it is just mind-bendingly complicated. Nikola Tesla told you what light was very simply. You know, this idea of C, or light speed, is ridiculous. Nothing emits sound. Sound is a disturbance in a medium. Nothing emits light either. He said it was the ratio between elasticity and density of the medium, i.e. the ether. And this is what we call C. This is the max induction rate at which the disturbance can occur. This is also too called the hysteresis of the medium, or the rate of induction at which the disturbance occurs. This is the reason why it changes. This makes explaining rainbows really, really easy. I was doing this in live stream. So you want to know how to explain a rainbow to like a, like a little kid? This is really easy. You like take 4 cars. The 4 cars are identical, except the red end car has got like a skinny person in it. They're all the same car. But the blue end spectrum's got like a fat guy in it. Yeah. So they're all going along, and then they hit a sharp turn in the road. Well, the same car with a fat guy in it is going to diverge more than the red car, and so it's actually going to spread out in white light. So you end up with this spectral divergence due to the capacitance of light. Like blue end spectrum light is like 2.5 eV, more powerful or greater capacitance than that of red end spectrum light. When it actually hits the water, the disturbance, the rate of induction changes, and you have this diffraction. Anybody could say diffraction, and we could read a description of it from Wikipedia, but that doesn't explain what's going on. It's like, explain it really simple. When you understand nature at its core, explaining it becomes really easy. And if it doesn't come easy, then you don't understand it. You could take a PhD professor of physics and say, explain to me in 30 seconds how a rainbow works. He won't do it. He won't be able to do it. Guarantee you. He'll refer you to like a paper, or like, oh, you need a postdoctorate to me to explain that to you. You'll never get it. It's like, even Einstein, as a blind squirrel, a blind squirrel can find a nut now and then, or a broken clock is right twice a day. Einstein says if you can't explain it to a barmaid, i.e. a dumb person, then you really don't get it. That's one thing he did get right. And it's true. So you've been lied to, same as everybody else. You've been listening to people that are regurgitating nonsense. But most people also, too, are not only not truth seekers, but they believe in the stuff that they were taught to believe in. You're regurgitating nonsense, but even if you knew it was nonsense, you're not a truth seeker. Most people are not. It's a huge necessary factor for being a true philosopher, which most people are not, nor do they want to be. It doesn't get them rich or anything else, the things that people covet in this life. So this ideas of waves and quantum and dualities, there are no dualities in nature. There can never be a duality in nature, implying an inherent contradiction. At the core of nature, it's utterly impossible. Anyway, check out my Substack. It's in the description link below. You want to email me, send me an email. That's in the description also. I hope you like these videos. I hope I keep them simple. If you do, any donations, always warmly welcome. And I'll check you in live stream. I love yakking with y'all in live stream. And I'll check you out there. By the way, any donation link is also too in the description below. I hope you have a lovely rest of your weekend. Good night and goodbye. Lux e veritas.